Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFLW Fantasy Fanatics pre-season episode today. It's going to be a big one because me and Jaden are going to be going through our team reveals. So always an exciting time of the year right before the season starts. We get to reveal our teams and chat through it. So but before we get into that, I'll be introducing my co-host and fellow AFLW Fantasy Fanatic. It is Jaden Poposky, mate. How are you? How was the weekend?
Hello, Bails. Yeah, good to be on, and not a bad weekend. It was good to watch some of the match simulations and get a bit of an idea of how the teams are going to go this year. And yeah, it certainly makes you excited for the round one start.
Oh, exactly. And obviously, we only got one more round of the men's fantasy, which I think for a lot of us, unless you're in the top 100 or in a grand final in any of your leagues, you're probably like, yep, I'm done with that. And moving on to AFLW Fantasy already, like myself. And I'm probably sure you're the same as well, mate.
Yeah, not too bad. Mainly in draft, I've got a lot of grand finals, but yeah, definitely not in classic.
Yeah, bloody classic, far out. But yeah, we will go through our teams, and obviously we're recording obviously on Monday the 19th of August. So we've still got just over a week and a couple of days or so till the first game on the Thursday. Obviously, in between that pre-finals bye and the men's, so still got a bit of time to make a couple of changes. But I think sort of we're both looking at we're sort of settled with a few of our players. Maybe a couple of players could sort of be interchanged. So we're going to go through each team. We're going to go through Jaden's team first, and then we're going to go through my team after that. So, but before we do, as always, if you guys are enjoying the content on YouTube and watching on there, then make sure you do smash a like on the video. That'd be very much appreciated. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're near, just over 40 subscribers away from 2.7k. So if you can help us hit that goal, that'd be fantastic. And if you're listening back to the pod, we appreciate it. And we'll be reading through the names as well, so you sort of can get sort of a glimpse of what our team's looking like. But if you want the visual format, then yeah, head over to YouTube and you can check out our teams visually. So we'll pop Jaden's team up on the screen right now. And there it is, starting with obviously the defense and the midfield. So Jaden, mate, just want to walk us through sort of play-by-player starting in defense and sort of maybe just a couple of words on why you've picked each player in your team. So let's get it started.
Yeah, sure. Pretty happy with the defense. I guess there's a few picks in there that just make a lot of sense, and it'd be silly to not do it. And that's starting with Sheeran. It just seems like one of those picks where she looked really good in the practice game, playing midfield, more of a defensive midfielder, so the tackles will be there. And she's great support for Conti and Egan in there. So it just makes sense, and I think it'd be silly to not do it. It's kind of a bit like Hayden Young this year, where like there's no risk of not doing it because she'll be highly owned. So yeah, there's no risk at all there. I've paid up for Charlie Thomas after the practice game. She looked quite good, and yeah, she still seems to be that kind of main distributor in defence, and yeah, only ever kicks, like no handballs at all, so that's good. Slasher's been there the whole time, obviously underpriced. Kate Lutkins has made her way in, a bit of an older player, but she's really, really cheap, like a rookie price, and she's averaged pretty well in previous seasons before. So I think she can kind of go all right. Yeah, to start the year mainly, especially with her fixtures. She's got North in round one. The ball should be down there a bit, hopefully. And then Melbourne, Collingwood, and then the double game. So that's kind of when I'm aiming to get her to, and then look to offload. And then, yeah, the rookies, McDonald and Beattie, they're just there at the moment. Not entirely sure, but yeah, pretty happy with those.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Well, we'll go through my team after, but sort of spoiler alert, we do have the exact same defense, so it's pretty funny that we're looking like that way there. But we'll move into the highest scoring position in our teams in the midfield. So walk us through who you've got in there. Looks like a big midfield as well.
Yeah, that high scoring is something that I'll try to look and go for. I guess there's two parts to that. There's obviously the primos that will score really well, but if you can get the right rookies, they can do really well. And we saw that last year with Anthony from Carlton scoring a 99 in round 1 or something and going up $200,000. So it is difficult, but at the moment I'm paying up a lot for these premium midfielders. So Marinoff and Rowbottom make too much sense with that fixture to start the year, and they would be my main captain and vice captain options. Conti is there, also pretty much fixture related, but yeah, she looked quite good in the practice game, and having Sheeran in there helps a bit, hopefully. And yeah, I'll kind of just double stack them to like try and make the most of what they've got at the start of the year. Garden is probably the one who can go. She's there at the moment. If I did find an option that's a bit cheaper, like a lot cheaper, she would probably go. But for now, she's there. And yeah, I guess the Port rookies are too good to pass up. So yeah, if I did want to drop Gardiner, I could move one of those on the field. But for now, I've just gone with that.
Yeah, no, I'm liking the midfield there, mate. And we'll move down to the rucks and the forward line.
Yeah, so obviously the money has to come from somewhere, and it is the forward line. Like I said last week, I don't really want to spend up in the forward line if I'm not massively confident that the gap between, say, a Paul Ngart, who's like pretty much rookie priced, and then say like some of these other players that are close to $1 million, if that gap isn't so large, then I'm not too worried about having these kind of rookie price players on the field. And it was a similar situation in the men's fantasy this year with the forwards. Like, just go cheap if you can, because I don't know how big the gap's going to be between like F6 and F20. So that's kind of my reasoning there. I don't know if I'll keep it, but that's what I've got at the moment. Too Good is the premier option, and I think I'll stick with that. The others,
I think that she's too good to pass up, I reckon.
Yeah, as everyone would be well aware by now. I've kept Gabby O'Sullivan there. She played a bit in defence in the match simulation, so I'm pretty keen on that. I don't think Freo will be very competitive this year, so if she's a bit of an experienced head back there, then that could help out a lot. And yeah, I'm not really sure how it will go, but yeah, I don't really intend on keeping these players for very long. So hopefully I can maybe get away with one or two of them. And then Edmonds in the ruck just makes a lot of sense. I think there's not a lot of other options, maybe one or two, but yeah, she's done it in the past, and like some of these matchups she has to start. And if you've watched her play, then you just know, like, she's just such a dominant ruck, like hit outs all the time. And yeah, I think at the price she's at, she shared it a little bit last year, so she's not the most expensive like she was this time last year. So that's where I've gone for now. And yeah, the rookies are fairly placeholder-ish at the moment, but I'm pretty sure Dersma went okay, maybe not amazing, but yeah, these can kind of maybe interchange, but I'll stick with that at the moment because I don't want to spend too much there if I'm going to be trading a lot, and I think there could be some better options, but we don't know them yet, so I want to save some room to make some moves in round 1 and round 2.
Yep.
Yeah, so exactly. That's all for now. I've got 100k left, so I guess the main things is Gardiner. Do I really want to pay that much? You can probably really only go backwards. And then, the forward line maybe needs a bit of a boost, and I'm pretty keen to see your forward line to see what you've done.
Well, we're about to go through it now, but I like the team. It's looking really, really good there. Alrighty, so moving swiftly to my team there, and as we mentioned before, probably don't need to go too in depth with the defense because the defense is exactly the same. So we've got Charlie Thomas and Isla Sheeran there. As you mentioned with them, sort of don't want to go too much over sort of the same thing. But again, Charlie Thomas, I think the ball's going to be down there a lot for West Coast, and obviously plenty of kick-ins there. And she was number one defend last year for a reason and gets plenty of the ball. So I do like her at D1. Isla Sheeran, obviously that midfield role. I think she's a really good pick, and she could be the D1 this year if she's playing that midfield role. And I'd probably almost project her to be if she's going to be playing mostly midfield. But we'll see, obviously, how much midfield time it does in the first few weeks of the season. Ruby Slice, obviously, she's underpriced, and I think she just has to be in there. Probably a bit surprised she's not the number one pick defender, if I'm being honest. I think you just got to have her. Obviously, she's been one of the pre defenders for a number of years up there, and obviously not playing much last year is meant that her price is right down. And then, Kate Lutkins and Abby McDonald there as the two rookies. As you said, that double game week in round 4 for Lutkins is what I'm eyeing off as well, and probably offloading her after that. And then Lulu Beatty on the bench as well. There's a couple of rookies in defence. Moving to that midfield there. So I've spent up for 3, but slightly different structure. So obviously that means that the forwards will be slightly different. But I've gone for, obviously, Ebony Marinoff is locked in there at M1. Obviously, she was number one scoring player last year. And her and Garner were the only two players that averaged over 120 and sort of clearing away the M1 and M2. I just think Marinoff is too good a player. And Hatchard's the one that normally gets tagged. So Noffy normally goes free, whereas Garner is the one that you tag normally at North Melbourne, so which is probably the thing that edged picking Marinoff instead, and also the fact that I'm obviously a Crows fan, as many people know. So then I got Charlie Rowbottom, who obviously, as Jaden mentioned before, has got good fixtures to start the season and heading into her 3rd or 4th season. I think it is now, still a very young mid, but she's a very, very good player, and even has a slightly like maybe a point maybe of value, and obviously because I think it was in her final game last year, she got injured in the either 3rd quarter or early in the last, and she just got stuck on about an 80, which is still a very good score as soon as she got injured. So looking forward to hopefully her going over 115. Mon Conti as well, obviously the reigning best and fairest player from last year in the comp. Very good start as well. Has an early double game week, and as you mentioned before with Isla Sheeran, I expect with Sheeran being in there, that means Conti's scoring will only increase, and I could see her approaching that 110 average this year. And then I've got the 2 midfield rookies. So I've got, I think Sinead Goody's going to be the one that we pretty much all lock at M5, unless anyone out there's going 5 mid primos. But I'd probably say just go at least one rookie there, and I think Goody's the pick. And I've got Pipe Window, who I think got an ankle injury yesterday in the Sandford practice, in the AFLW practice game. So hopefully should be good for round 1. But if she's not, obviously I'll have to do a bit of a restructure there. And then I've got on the bench, I've got Sane Backer. I apologize, I've butchered that name, but it's actually going to be Harkin from West Coast, who is a rookie who looked pretty good playing in the midfield there, and she's a basement, so she's just a placeholder there for Harkin. I don't think Harkin's been added to the game yet. Hopefully that will be soon. Rucks the same as well. So I've got Alice Edmonds and I've got O'Dowd there at the moment. Obviously, Lily Pearce is the main ruck at Geelong, so probably one of those two I'll start with. I've just picked O'Dowd there at the moment, and whether I change it or not, we'll obviously see. Probably I'll probably list the free kicker heap and see which they're looking at going at R2, and then I'll look at picking them. And then the forward line, obviously slightly different. This is where we probably differed a bit more with our team structures, myself and Jaden, is that I've spent up a bit in the forward line. So I've gone Bonnie Toogood. Again, I just think you just need her in your team as the clear number one scoring forward. I have paid up for Kate Hoare, and I did actually pay up for her before this past weekend. I think I might have put her in probably early to mid last week, just hearing her playing majority midfield in the first practice game of the preseason, and then she continued again, played a bit forward as well, but was essentially the main focal point for Melbourne there. And I think with we're recording now, but just before we started recording, we saw Liv Purcell set for surgery. I think she had a couple of facial fractures, so I don't know how long she'll be out for, but that's another midfielder out, which means I think even more midfield time for Kate Hoare than what already was there. So I really like her as a pick, even though she does have a tougher run to start the season. I've then got Katie Brennan there, who played Brisbane yesterday. Looked pretty good. Had 3 goals, I think 15 disposals. And again, I mentioned with Conti and Sheeran, Richmond have got a pretty good early run. And I just think that she can pop a few good scores early, and then get to a double game week, and then maybe even sideways her to another forward premium that's looking like a good option, or even go down if there's a value option at the time. So I think there's a bit of flexibility to also, if I want to bring in an Ella Roberts, for example, or a Maddie Prasparkas, I think going a Katie Brennan down to a rookie, and if like a Tripodi or Dersma I've got on the bench goes well, I can restructure that way. I've got Ellie Gavalis there as well. Obviously, she's been a bit of a hype name in the preseason, expected to get some midfield time at the Dogs as well. And then Michaela Paunger, who's obviously looking really good at the Giants with a bit more mid-time there. And then I mentioned Ruby Tripodi and Yasmin Dersma there. Tripodi playing a bit of mids in the preseason, and then Dersma playing across halfback. So, I'm liking those couple of rookies there. So they're the teams that we've gone through. So we'll quickly go through sort of a few names that I guess we've probably looked at putting in our teams, and who we could maybe bring into our teams before the season starts. So Jaden, in defence, is there any other names that you have closely looked at and monitored that you might sort of try and fit in, or might bring in before the start of the season?
Yeah, there's a few. I guess one that I did have was Karen Peterson. She didn't play on the weekend, so I think that's probably a no for now. But one that did catch my eye, and I did only watch the first few practice matches. I didn't get through the whole weekend watching them, but was Serene Watson from St Kilda. She played pretty well, and as a defender, I think there is some room for upside in the St Kilda backline. They don't have any expensive premium defenders as it is at the moment. And yeah, she's only $413,000, which is very cheap. I guess the issue is she kind of played every game last year, so she missed one game. So there's not a lot of there's not a lot of reason to pick her other than just the natural improvement. But yeah, I'm always keen to just look at teams and try and figure out where the gaps are, especially from like if they have no premium defenders, like who's going to be the one that can rise the most, I guess. I think Hannah Priest maybe got a little bit injured, and she was definitely playing in defence. So she had a calf injury. I don't think that's massively serious, but yeah, she was definitely in defence. So yeah, maybe it ends up there, but she's a mid only, so I wouldn't pick her. So I think, Watson at her price is fairly good. But I'm not sure if there's enough there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely a name that's been on sort of my target list as well. In terms of defenders for me that I've looked at potentially owning in the preseason. So I did have Nicole Bresnahan in as one of my picks at 712K. I think that there's room for a little bit of upside. I guess that the only thing that probably concerned me a little bit sort of from the preseason is that Emma Carney's obviously still there. We knew this in the preseason, but she's still the focal point back there. And I guess my worry is, does she have enough upside with Carney back there to be she's priced at 55. Can she go at 65 or sort of around that mark and be good value? Whereas I've got the extra little bit of money to pay up for the likes of Charlie Thomas and Isla Sheeran, which I feel more confident in because of obviously how well Charlie Thomas played this year and projected to go again, and then Sheeran moving into the midfield. So at the moment, she's currently not seeing that, but she's definitely been someone that I've been looking at there. And obviously, you mentioned a couple of names as well that I've looked at as well. There, obviously, the one that we both had and was actually one of our locks in our episode last week was Lauren Butler, but unfortunately, she's been ruled out. I think it was 2 to 4 weeks as of the weekend. I think it was an ankle injury, if I'm not mistaken. So we don't even know if she'll be ready for the start of the season, and she's probably cheap enough where we could almost watch her for a week or two if she started round one, and sort of look maybe for a weekend and bring her in after. But it almost have us fantasy coach would be great for her to start the season. But as fantasy coaches, we're probably thinking if she could start like round 2 or 3, she could be an immediate downgrade option from one of these rookies. and she could even just be a bench option, and doesn't even have to be on the field, but she's someone that you can play on field there. So they're probably the two for me that I've looked at, as well as a few other names, obviously, around the premium options that I've looked at. But I think I'm pretty set with Thomas and Sheeran being my prems. If anything, it'd be maybe a Charlie Thomas down, but I don't see my change much. I think he's so. But yeah, Jaden, midfielders from the midfield, who has sort of caught your eye and who might make their way into your team?
I suppose Maddie Praspark has played pretty well. She's someone that I've looked at as an option. She's a bit cheaper than the other premium mids, priced under 100. So she's an option. And Ellie McKenzie also played really well for Richmond, and she's only 649,000. So yeah, I kind of think in my head, like, the equivalent is like Isaac Heaney. So she's like always been that chance to go really well, but you never know when it's going to happen. So it could be this year. Especially because she only like played one game last year, she's quite a bit cheaper than what she, I guess, would have been. So she's also an option. But again, I have a lot of Richmond players already, so I don't know if I can really fit her in. But yeah, like I said earlier, I am kind of looking to see if there is a cheaper option in the midfield, because I am pretty heavy in there. But yeah, I guess I'll have to wait until teams to see what happens with the Richmond lineup.
Yeah, and I was thinking the exact same thing when you said that as well. I was like, I was also looking at Eddie McKenzie, but then when we've already got Sheeran in defence, we've already got Monconti, Katie Brent's obviously an option for us, and it's just like, how many Tigers can you have? It's sort of, especially with the double game weeks and stuff, I don't know if we can necessarily go too heavy with a particular team. So yeah, but then again, I guess they're all good options, and you can always put them in if you like. But yeah, I think that obviously, Maddie Praspark is someone I'm got. Definitely, if I'm going to restructure and put a different mid in, she'd be one of the top ones just because of her run to start the year. Essendons have got a pretty good run there. Jazz Garner's the one which I think we'll have a slight discussion with in a second, but she's obviously one that I want to start just because of how well she obviously went last year and how good of a player she is. But obviously the worry is that if you're spending potentially what's that, essentially 3.3 million on both Marinoff and Garner, or just over, that's a lot of money just to be in your top two positions. And then you've got the likes of like a Monconti is nearly 300k less than a Jazz Garner. You've got like a lot of other options in that 1.3, 1.2 million bracket, like an Ali Anderson, Elise Parker. They're like, what's that, 400k essentially cheaper. Maddie Praspark is the same thing. So there's a lot of options that are a lot cheaper. So we'll chat about Jazz Garner a tiny bit in a sec. Obviously, Ash Riddell is always an option there as well. And I guess you probably want Garner and Riddell for that double game week for North Melbourne in round 5. So maybe starting with one of them is a good move. And then you can bring in the other one in round 5. I currently don't have either, but I'd like to maybe fit one if I could. Obviously, Laura Garner's an option up there as well that I've looked at. Georgia Sparks, I think it's a little bit of value there. Ali Anderson's got the early double game week, so she could be a player that you start and then maybe swap to another midfield primo after round 4. Elise Parker, someone I think is another option there as well. And then a few of the cheaper ones in that sort of around the million mark, like an Ella Roberts, Georgia Nanscorn, those type players I'm also keeping an eye on there. So a few options there, along with Ellie McKenzie is a bit cheaper. But I guess we'll just chat about Jazz Garner quickly. So is there a world, Jaden, where you could see yourself starting both Marinoff and Garner, or do you think that it's just too much money to be spending into two midfielders, and she's more of an upgrade target, I guess, in maybe round 3, 4, and then hopefully grab her by her double game weekend round 5?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I would want her definitely in the middle part of the season. But yeah, I just can't really pay, I guess, that much for 2 players. It could make sense. And she is very highly owned. So 44% of teams currently do have her. Marinoff is at 70%. So it's quite a big gap there. But yeah, as you said, the gap between her and the rest of the midfielders in terms of price is very significant. Like Garner is 150,000 more than Riddell, who's the next most expensive. So yeah, that can turn a rookie to a mid-pricer or a mid-pricer to a underpriced premium in another line. So I think I just can't see myself doing it, and I want to go for in the middle part of the year. So it kind of makes sense to try and get her a little bit cheaper. Not sure if that would happen. So I think in terms of that, I would be more comfortable starting with Riddell purely for that extra 150,000. And I don't think when you're picking two players from the same team, you kind of don't really imagine them doing too much differently to each other. So if I was going to start one of them, I'd probably go Riddell just for that extra bit of money. And I definitely not both.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and we saw in the stats that were released sort of earlier on today on Monday that a few stats have been released in a bit of a match recap for all the matches there. So I'll retweet it on my Twitter as well, and it's on the AFLW Twitter account as well. So if you guys want to look at the recap for that, make sure you check that out as well. But Riddell had like 38 touches or something, which is crazy. She just finds a way to get the ball. Just an absolute ball magnet, Ash Riddell. So she's definitely one that if I want to start one of these North Melbourne mids, as I mentioned, I'd like to have both by round 5 and maybe starting one so you don't have to worry about bringing in 2 might be a play that I'll look at. But I guess maybe that would mean obviously one less forward premium, which might not be a bad option, as you mentioned before. If the top players are not too far away from there, you could get points upgrade there. So definitely something I'll be considering there. So and I guess Jazz Garner's also got Brisbane first up. We know Kathy Svaka's done a bit of tag in the past. Maybe there's a chance that she goes there. If she maybe dropped let's say 90 in the first week or an 85, she'll drop a bit. Obviously being priced over 127, and then you can maybe get her, as you said, 100, 200k cheaper later on. So not very good call there. Moving into the rucks, obviously there's not a huge amount of options, I guess we're probably both considering, but is there anyone, if you were, I guess, to maybe change from an Alice Edmonds, is there anyone that you might be potentially looking at? I think you said maybe 1 or 2 options you might look at.
Yeah, I was quite surprised with how well Poppy Kelly looked for Richmond. I didn't expect her to play full ruck. I thought maybe they'd have to pull out Gabby Seymour to cover the loss of McKinnon, but she looked fairly comfortable there and spent a lot of time there. So she is an option. I think, only 526,000. So I think even more so in the rucks, the gap between the top and the bottom is not very big. So if I can find a way to make it work, I could do that. And she does have a fair fixture to start off with West Coast and GWS, who were the 2 easiest ruck matchups last season.
Yeah, right.
So that's probably the main pivot that I would look to. But I think with that, it depends a lot on whether we have suitable rookie rucks below. So I think, I would want a little bit of backup just in case. But I'm not really sure how that's going to pan out yet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's been a name that I've looked at as well. Obviously, hearing didn't get to watch this game, but hearing obviously she played quite well as the main ruck there. And I'm even just looking at the last 2 games she played last year against Geelong and Collingwood, where she had over 20 hits in both games, played over 70% in both games, and she scored a 53 from 71% against Geelong, and then scored a 59 in 79% time on ground against Collingwood. And that was with Gabby Seymour still playing a fair bit in the ruck. So we know that Gabby Seymour is making that transition as to more of a defender. Poppy Kelly being at 526k, I think that there's a couple of options around that price that might be good options. And as you mentioned, obviously there's like a Lily Pearson, Eilish O'Dowd, that if you might even start one in your ruck and one in utility, you've got maybe 3 options. But I guess if people start with maybe more of an expensive forward line, maybe you can always go a forward down if you need to, and then go your ruck up the following week, and you might even have a week to have a look. So I'm definitely looking at that. That's something I sort of played around with a little bit with my structure, and it certainly makes your team look a bit better as well, just with that extra 500k or so that you get from from Alice Edmonds there. So any other names you're looking at the ruck there as well?
No, I think that's all.
So it's Edmonds or Kelly?
Yeah, pretty much. So that's what it's come down to.
Yeah. I think the other name I'm looking at, so like Ali Morfitt's there, but as you mentioned, I think there's not a huge amount between the top rucks and some of the other ones a bit cheaper. So I might even just like wait a little bit for maybe, I guess, Ali Morfitt to drop. And then if I don't start Edmonds, maybe even wait for these other players to drop. Obviously, I've got Edmonds in my team at the moment. The other one I do like, though, is I don't know how she played on the weekend. So I'm actually looking forward to hearing the free kick pod this week, because I've been keen on Jess Allen at 693 for the Crows, being the main ruck with Montana McKinnon going to Richmond, unfortunately, obviously doing her ACL, which is obviously really sad, but freeing up that sort of ruck space for Jess Allen to be the solo ruck with, I guess, Caitlin Gould chopping out every now and again. So I'm sort of intrigued to see how she went on the weekend. Even if you did watch the Crows practice game on the weekend, let us know in the comments, or send us a sort of Twitter DM or whatever, and let us know, because I'd be keen to see how she went, because she's someone that I was sort of keen on before this game. So yeah, she's probably the other one that I am looking at. Moving into the forwards, obviously there are probably a lot of options, but we're probably just not really sure exactly how these players are going to go. So of the players that you don't have in your side, who are some players that you've maybe had in your side for periods, and you're sort of keeping a close eye on? Maybe you might not even start with them, but you might, but maybe having a look at early in the season. So who are they in the forward?
Yeah, as I said, I've gone quite cheap, so it is difficult to find other options, because I'm pretty reliant on the value. I guess, yeah, as you mentioned before, Kate Hoare played amazingly well, and yeah, it's pretty much her team at the moment. There's not a lot of scoring that's happening around her, so especially with Purcell going down, there's going to be points on offer. So yeah, I could pay up for her. But yeah, it is difficult, because I don't really love the idea of having Too Good and Hoare. So I might have to reconsider there. But yeah, I'm not too sure on many others. There's been a few names going around, but it's just difficult in the forward line, because none of them really massively exceeded expectations. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure, and because I have a lot of them in my team already, I think that's probably like I'm struggling already, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so many forwards, like even the ones the players that even I don't have in my team that that I've either had in for periods in the preseason, or have just been keeping a close eye on. So like just a few to sort of name off. I won't start her, and I don't think many people will. But I'm always going to get sucked into Chelsea Randall potentially as an option at 767. I just don't know how much mid-time she will get with Tia Charlton, obviously playing quite well for the Crows and obviously improving year on year. So that would be one, I guess, I'd just watch and see if she, how much midfield time she got. Courtney Hodder, and we saw get midfield time back into last year, and has been having a bit of mids time in the preseason. Had like 18 tackles, something in the grand final, put up like a 90 odd. So she's definitely someone that could be an option that I do consider there. Taylor Harris was someone I was looking at, but the fact she hasn't played any of the preseason games, I'd just prefer to watch that first and potentially move to her if she started playing really, really well there. So as we go down the list here, obviously a fair few players around that sort of 500k range. So like Gabby O'Sullivan, obviously you've got her. She's been one I've been looking at as well, and obviously playing that defensive role, if that sort of stays, I think she could be quite a good scorer. Casey Sheriff I was looking at as well. She's been playing a bit of mid-time for Hawthorn the preseason. Didn't get a huge amount of the ball in the practice game on the weekends. That's sort of maybe she's one I'd rather watch first and then move on to as an option there, maybe in sort of round 2 or 3. And then, I don't think that, besides that, there's obviously just a few sort of suspect names sort of outside of that there, and then some rookies that there's just a heap, and maybe you just jump on someone if they start playing really well early. So yeah, a fair few forward options to be considering for sure. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much our team reveal is pretty much done, and that's what we're looking like at the moment. Obviously, with just over a week with tinkering and stuff, I'm sure we'll both be making plenty of changes in the meantime. But so, any other players you want to quickly touch on, Jaden, or any sort of stats or anything you want to go over before we wrap up the episode?
I think all covered, and yeah, hopefully the team reveal is fairly helpful to understand a bit of the structure. I know it helped me a lot last year, thanks to Bails' video. So yeah, and that got me a hat in the end, I think. So thanks, Bails. So hopefully that helps you guys as well with kind of understanding, yeah, how to structure up your team a little bit. And yeah, I guess with a lot of these things, it can change very quickly. But if you've got kind of a lot of the pieces in place, hopefully you can understand, yeah, where you want to pivot to if required, and the kind of decisions that you'll have to make ahead of round one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad that you got a hat, and appreciate the compliment there. It just would have been good if I could have got a hat as well, but I still haven't got a hat in AFLW or AFL Fantasy, so which is frustrating. Hopefully, at some point we can break that, and hopefully could be this AFLW Fantasy season. So, but yeah, obviously the only thing I'll probably just say before we sort of wrap up is obviously, if you obviously enjoyed our team reveals as well, but make sure obviously you guys check out the guys at Free Kick. I'm sure that if you're doing AFLW Fantasy, you have already, but if you haven't, and if you've sort of getting into the preseason part of AFLW Fantasy and making your team, then obviously check out our episodes, but also, yeah, check out Free Kick either on their podcast platform or on the official AFLW Fantasy podcast feed there as well. They're obviously the best at it. They got all the info. They've obviously had all the club previews, and you get the players' insight and stuff, and then they go through their top 5 from each club, and then they've got plenty of content coming out over the next sort of week and a bit before the start of the season. So make sure you guys are tuning into all their stuff, because I certainly will be, to get all everything, all the ducks in a row before the start of the season. So no, looking forward to it. Looking forward to the start of the season. So Jaden, mate, thanks again once again for jumping on the episode, mate. Where can the people find you across the socials, and anything else you want to plug?
No worries, Bails. Yeah, you can check out my website, statsbyjaden.com.au, putting up some AFLW related stats on there. Yeah, everything I've talked about fixture, that's up there at the moment. So that's been the main guiding thing at the moment. But yeah, once the season starts, I'll have a bunch of other stuff, including break evens. Hopefully they haven't
unavailable anywhere else at this.
Hopefully they haven't changed the formula. So yeah, I'll get that going, and yeah, maybe I should actually put those up before the season starts, but it does change a lot. So yeah, they'll be up there. So yeah, keen for it to all begin.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Now make sure you get around it as well. And you can find me at Bails DT across the socials as well. You can find us at AFL Fantasy Fans on Twitter. So make sure you go and give us a follow there as well, and follow sort of all the socials, which are in the links of the podcast and the video as well. Yeah, we'll be back next week, sort of for our sort of final episode before the season kicks off, sort of just going through sort of any last minute change we might have made, sort of if there's any sort of injury news or any sort of news that comes out, we'll probably just discuss that, and might even be able to have a guest on. We'll have to see how we go, but it might just, if it's just me and Jaden, then that'll be, hopefully that'll be good for you guys as well to go through everything before the start of the season. But if you are tuning in on the video, thank you very much for tuning there. And if you can leave a like on the video, that'd be fantastic, and subscribe to our channel. And if you're listening back to the podcast and would be so kind to give us a 5-star rating and review, that'd be very much appreciated. It only takes a couple of seconds to do that, not only for YouTube, but on the podcast as well. So if you guys can do that to help us out, that'd be real help as we are about to kick off the AFLW Fantasy season, which will be really good as well. But yeah, until next week, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next week at the same time, same place. Thanks, everyone. See ya.